Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and I'm still doing the sweep series because I read a whole bunch of these at once and figured I'd just do them and punch these all out. So these are actually being done in like one night. Anyways, okay, one fell sweep. We have continued this series. By the way, the sweep thing, you should know, it's because as an innkeeper, you have a magic broomstick. And it's not magic broomstick as in she uses it to fly. It's as in, it's like a magic wand. And also it can turn into, like, swords and things. It's weird. I'm not entirely certain. I mean, I presume that it being a broom at least tangentially relates to the concept of being a caretaker. But it's still kind of weird. But, you know, these books, they're not, the character interactions aren't particularly outre. You know, you have a bog standard, vampire, werewolf, in this case, innkeeper, love triangle, which is hardly new. You know, like, having the neutral ground thing isn't new, but there's the weird bits that crop up. And like I said, the world building in this is really, it's good world building. I really enjoy the world building that has gone into these books. Anyways, the book opens with Dina having gotten a message from her sister that her sister is in trouble because her sister left and married into a noble vampire family, and then she's just kind of been incommunicado ever since. And so her sister calling for help, it leaves Dina kind of concerned. So she asks for help from her sometime vampire paramour and her werewolf sometime paramour. Like, she's not in a relationship with either of them. She has, in fact, been actively avoiding it because she feels that both of them are trouble and it's not worth the trouble. But, you know, it's still the two of them are still competing over her. Interestingly, they're kind of sort of friends while at the same time competing, and it's a complicated thing. Anyways, this, however, is the big family event. Because the vampire decides that he's going, his name is Arlen, and he decides that he's going to help Dina rescue her sister. And he sees her sister, and after a brief period of suspicion, because Dina's sister is not a fainting flower, delicate human who can't handle herself, her sister is, in fact, Xena Warrior Princess, pretty much, only in, like, vampire armor, which is, like, this super fancy technological armor stuff. Anyway, it's a big deal, the armor. And, so her sister is in that, is, like, super amazing warrior woman thing, and he is totally taken with her. He's totally taken with the fact that she has a 5-year-old half-vampire daughter named Helen, and he just, like, he basically falls head over heels and completely forgets about Dina, and thus is the love triangle resolved. Is the vampire part of the love triangle just sort of falls in love with somebody else and moves on, and that's that. And it's actually really, really refreshing because instead of having this love triangle hang around forever, one of them just moves on, and then situation resolved. But in the meantime, you know, she's rescuing her sister, and his uncle shows up and is kind of pissed off because he's like, dude, everybody saw you show up at, like, Space Australia, because there's a planet that's been made into basically, you know, a colony of criminals and stuff, and they are cut off from the rest of the galaxy, and so it's pretty much Space Australia, which is where her sister had wound up, because after her sister's husband had gotten them exiled from the family, they had been sent to Space Australia, and then he got himself killed, and so she's been a single mom in a Mad Max universe in outer space. So that was why she called Dina for help, because she figured at this point she just needs somebody to bail her out. Anyways, so that's how this opens, but pretty much immediately becomes a side issue, because the main story of this is that a couple of aliens show up and ask Dina for a refuge and for a place for them to collect the pieces of a mystical who's-it that only appears once every umpty squillion years that can answer questions. That, it's sort of an oracle thing. And their homeworld was destroyed by a species called the Draziri, and the Draziri have decided to declare a holy war against this other species, whatever they're called, I don't remember. I'm too brain dead right now to remember something that I finished reading yesterday. Anyways, and so they have decided to hunt down this population of aliens for basically no reason, because, these guys were completely inoffensive. I mean, they smell awful and look weird and horrifying and all kinds of things, but they're perfectly nice people who were going about their lives perfectly quietly and didn't do anything to offend the Draziri, who just decided they were going to murderize them. And nobody knew why. Anyway, so the Draziri show up and basically put the inn under siege. And Dina has to hold the inn against a siege with pretty much just her werewolf not boyfriend and the vampire who's in love with her sister and a couple of random other people who show up along the way. And they just barely manage to make it through, and we get a happily ever after, and the relationship works out, but along the way, there's a lot of overwrought drama happening. Just the endless efforts on her part, because, of course, as an innkeeper, the safety of her guest is sacrosanct, and once she took in those two aliens who are trying to basically request the oracle help them find a new home, once she took them in as her guests, she is obligated by her oaths as an innkeeper to protect them and to take care of them, which means she is stuck literally under siege. Interestingly, throughout this whole series, throughout the first 3 books, we've had this police officer who, in the first book, was suspicious, and in the second book, he saw his car get, practically chopped in half by an alien with an axe, and they used their, technology and fancy engineering skills to put the car back in what was pre-axe state. And you have this cop, and, he knows something is up. He knows something weird is going on, and he's been trying to figure out what weird thing is going on. Because, if you just let the weird things keep happening, for all you know, there's going to wind up being a meth explosion, and nobody needs that. So, he's aware that something happened, but they've removed all of his proof, and if he tries to tell anybody, he'll sound like the crazy guy saying that aliens took him and, probed his butt. So he can't say anything. But at the end of this book, he shows up and he tells them, by the way, I've been on a quarter tank of gas for the last, 5,000 miles, and, the needle on the gas gauge still isn't budging. My car is still getting around perfectly fine, and I have yet to need to purchase more gas. You have done something to my car, and I know you've done something to my car, and I will keep waiting to find out. And Dina's just like, God, and Dina's just aggravated because, the engineer had like, said that he'd sworn an oath to never do anything that would ruin, the health of the galaxy or planet or whatever. And, of course, combustion engines, they're pollutants. They're very polluting. They're very bad. We all know this. So he, can't in good conscience fix it, but he eventually gets bullied into fixing it, except, of course, when he finishes fixing it, he has fixed the fact that it was a combustion engine so that it doesn't, use any gas or barely any gas at all. And so, Dina's just like, you're supposed to keep this a secret, guys. Not make it so that he can, never needs to purchase any more gas ever again. He's gonna notice that. Anyhow, this third book, Officer Murray is finally brought in simply because he's been around too many things that they're forced to basically violate the statute of secrecy, so to speak, because it's like they have to explain what's going on. It's that if they don't, he is likely to do something and get himself killed to expose things, and he wouldn't have even intended to violate those laws about exposing aliens to the greater population of Earth. He'd just be a cop trying to do his job, because he is a good cop who's just trying to do his job. Anyway, so they kind of bring him into the fold as one of the group, in that they sort of explain everything that's happening, and then Sean the werewolf also gives Officer Murray a, disintegration gun, because he's like, listen, the guy is going to try to enforce the law, and now that he knows about intergalactic law, he'll try to enforce that too. He should have a weapon he can use that can actually work on, intergalactic felons. So, Officer Murray gets to have a disintegration gun, which is biometrically locked to him, and so on and so forth, so that, he's the only one who can use it. Just, Sean is very careful, because the last thing you want is to have one of Officer Murray's kids get a hold of, a disintegration gun, and in one of those horrific accidents where kids accidentally shoot themselves, manage to not merely shoot themselves, but literally disintegrate themselves, which would be bad. Anyway, so, yeah, and this book, it ends on not so much a cliffhanger, but a moment that's kind of like a post-credits scene. Because as a favor to the Innkeeper, who's protected them and made their chance to find out where their home is possible, the aliens that she had been protecting, the hero, that's it, they're called the hero, she is granted the right to ask a question, so of course she asks the one question that has been an ongoing question throughout this series, and that is, how do I find my parents? And she's given this clue, which is Sebastian North, and nobody knows what that means. And at the end of the book, we find out that the cat that she just bought has a SN as initials on his, on the collar that he came with. And, you're left with a dun dun dun. Could that be a hint towards Sebastian North? Anyways. So, it's not quite a cliffhanger, but it's a sort of a cliffhanger. Like I said, it's more like a post-credit scene. Anyway, so, yeah. Again, it's not epic. I mean, obviously to everybody involved it would feel epic, but it's not we are saving the whole galaxy. It's a relatively small group of people, because they've already been mostly exterminated. Anyways, again, good time, fun. In spite of all the supposedly heavy stuff, these are really very light reads, and they're a great time. So that's everything, and I will see you all next week.